I hope you all are doing good. So, hello everyone, and welcome to webinar on Cadmatic Key Features and Highlights 2023 T3. Before we go ahead with the session, let me walk you through with some details for this session. I would kindly ask you to close all the other application except GoToWebinar. This way we can ensure the quality of the webinar for you. During the webinar, if there is any problem with the audio or picture quality, you can use your control panel to interact with us and we will try our level best to help you. There are handout for you to download. So you can download the handout PDF, which has been attached to your control panel. With the question tools on the side of the screen, you can type in questions anytime during the webinar. We will try to answer as many questions as we can at the end of the webinar. And if we cannot answer all of them live, you will get all the answers by email. And now, without wasting more time, I would like to call Atharva Dikshit, who is working here as an application specialist for the technical presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello everyone, myself Atharva Dikshit, working in Cadmatic since past 2 years. I warmly welcome you all to this webinar on Cadmatic New Release Highlights 2023. Beginning with the introduction, each year Cadmatic has one major annual release. The name of this annual release is identified by the publishing year. Within the given annual release, we have three tertiary releases named as T1, T2 and T3. Currently, if we see, the version 2023 T3 is the latest version. Here, 2023 signifies the publishing year and T3 signifies the tertiary release name. In order to benefit with the new features, using the latest version is advised. Always check for our release notes which are given in the handouts. Additionally, Cadmatic Academy is available on invite. Our agenda for the day shall include some notable new functionalities from the P&ID as well as the plant modeler interface. In the P&ID module, we will see how you can create and insert labels to the nodes. After that, we'll see how you can collectively edit the data of the smart data cards of the 2D symbols by importing the data directly from the Excel. Followed by that, in the plant modeler interface, we will look at some additional pipe branching features. Then we will have an overview of the new isometric tool. And lastly, we will conclude by looking at the style-based and the rule-based functionalities of the isometric tool. So let us begin with our P&ID environment. The first function that we'll be seeing here is how you can place a label to a given node. Now firstly, I will just explain you the steps that you need to follow and what you can expect as an outcome through the help of these slides. And once we are done here, we will go into the P&ID environment and actually perform those steps, right? So in order to give the node a label, firstly, there is a prerequisite of creating a label definition. In order to do that, we need to create a label definition with the desired characteristics that you want to implement on the node label. Once that is done, we can check that in and click on approve for use in the project PMS. Once we check it in and we approve it, we will go into the P&ID interface. We'll add the created label definition under the diagram labels and we'll check that in. Once that is ready, we can go ahead and simply click on the node that needs to be labeled. We will select the label definition that we have just created and you will see that the node label with the predefined format will appear. Now let me take you to the P&ID environment where we'll see the steps that need to be performed and how the label will appear. We can take this particular P&ID for our reference. Here under the home tab under the labels insert, here if you expand this you will see that there is no dedicated diagram label for the nodes. So let us go ahead and create one. We'll go into File, Environment, All Library and Project. Here under the .lib, we'll go into Document Production and Label Definitions. Here we'll create a new label definition for our node, and the description also I'll write node. Here the label for application will select as PD, that is our P&ID diagram. We'll click on OK, and this is how it will be created. Next we will edit this. If you want, you can use a dedicated icon which can be selected from here. In this drop down we shall select the DG connection. Under the edit option, here we can select what all information we want to extract from a given node. I'll click on add. Here in this drop down, I'll go to connection node, and this is the various column based information that we can extract. Firstly, I will take the node name and I will click on add. After that, I can select the node size. Now here, if I want to add any kind of a prefix or a postfix between the node name and the node size, I can add over here. For example, in prefix I will add a hyphen, and in postfix I will add the letters D and N. I'll click on add and I'll click on close. Now how this label will give the outcome is, in the format it will first give us the node name, then from the prefix it will take the hyphen, then it will give us the node size, and from the postfix it will give us the letters D and N. We'll click on OK. Here if you want to change the text number, you can change it as well. As of now I'll keep it on default. We'll click on OK. We'll check this in and we'll approve this to use in the PMS. Again, if we go into the insert tab, here you won't be able to see the node that we have just created. So we'll right click this, we'll edit this, we'll click on add, and we'll select the label definition that we had created. We'll click on OK. And lastly, we'll click on check-in, and you can see this is what we had created. We'll click on OK. Now let us see, we'll just zoom into this particular node. I'll select this node, and you can see like this the label will come. In the expected format, we have the name of the node, that is N1 hyphen, the size, and then we have the DN. Now here, if you want to add a size, you can go into modify. We'll select this node, we'll add the nominal size as 100. We'll click on OK, and the same will be reflected on the label as well. So this is how you can create and you can insert the label to a given node. Now moving ahead to our next feature, we have the Excel data update. Now we can say that this is one of the much awaited features in Cadmatic that has been published in this version, that enables you to edit the data collectively of all the similar object types directly from the Excel. That means you do not have the need to go to the 2D symbol and then open the smart data card and then update the data manually one by one. Instead, what you can do, you can, for all the object types of the similar category, for example pumps, for all the pumps you can directly update the data from the Excel. You will find this option under the edit drop down in the data label under the home tab. So let us go to the P&ID and let us see how this is performed. For this given P&ID that we are considering, okay, so let us say that I have 4 pumps with me. The position IDs for them start from P201 to P204, and each of the pump have their own smart data card. Some information is filled, some information is yet to be filled. Okay, I can say that I want to edit the information. I want to fill the smart data card for these 4 pumps together, right? So I'll go into the home tab. Here under the modify option, under the edit, in the edit drop down, I have the option to edit multiple objects. You can see like this, a hierarchy tree will come in front of me. Under the equipments, I'll click on pumps. You can see these are the pumps that we have from P203, 204. So all these pumps we have, and if I just slide this, you can see this is the various information that is present inside of the data cards of these particular pumps. Let us say that I want to fill in the materials column for these pumps that I have. Now I don't have an Excel in my hand already. So what I will do, I will export this pump data firstly in the form of an Excel. I will click on export. I'll just keep it on the desktop. I'll click on save. I'll just close this and the Excel shall open. Here you can see this is the Excel that we have. This is the position IDs and this is the material table that is currently empty. Right, so let me just fill the material. Let me give SS for this particular pump, MS for this, okay, CS. So just like that, I'm just filling some random information. And here, let me just give X and Y to these pumps. Here I will click on save. After that, I will come back to my P&ID. Here I will go into edit, multi objects. I'll go into pumps. Earlier we had clicked on export. Now we have our Excel in our hand. So I'll click on import. I'll go to browse and I will select the directory. It was kept on the desktop, equipment pumps. I'll click on open, click on OK. Right. You can see here the changes are in the 5 rows. The ignored are 0 and the errors are 0. So I'll click on accept and the changes will be implied. Here if I slide it, here you can see whatever changes I had done for the respective position IDs of the pump in the material column, the same are being reflected over here. Not just that, here if I open the smart data card of this particular pump, the same will be filled over here. Under the materials you can see CS is filled for this one we have SS. Like this, all 4 pumps will have the particular material that we had filled over here, you can see. And for the last one, MS is present. So like this, you can import the data from the Excel and collectively edit the smart data card of a particular set of symbols. So this was about the new feature of Excel data update. Moving ahead with our slides, let us look at some notable new features from the plant modeler interface. Speaking of which, first new feature that we have is concentrated towards the pipe branching function. We have 2 new functions for the pipe branching command. Firstly, you can either slide or rotate a branch that you have already created. This particular feature is added in a separate edit branch dropdown under the piping tab. The second new feature that has been added is for creating a tangential branch. This feature can be found in the make branch command, right? So let us look at these features in the 3D module. So let us consider that I want to make a branch to this pipeline. I will just create one branch. Let me select the nominal size as 80. On OK, I will select the direction of the branch. Let me take this direction. I click on enter. Now I have this branch created with me. Here we have the edit branch option. Under this drop down, I have the option to either slide the branch or to rotate the branch. If I click on the slide branch option, I click on the branch, I click on enter. Here you can see we have the axis locked running parallel to the center line, and I can slide this branch in that particular axis. I can either randomly click somewhere or I can use the distance command to give a fixed distance from the previous point. Right? So this was about sliding the branch. Similar to that, we have the rotate branch option. I'll click the branch, I'll click on enter. I can select any of the angle from this angle selector that I have. I can either select this angle from here or I can right click and I can go into enter rotation angle and I can enter a complete random angle and the branch will be rotated in that given angle. So pretty much easy. These were 2 of the direct features that have been added focusing the pipe branch. Coming back to our slides, after looking at 2 new functions, namely the slide branch and the rotate branch, we have another feature again focused towards the pipe branching, that is tangential branch. So this feature will be found under the make branch command. So let us go back to our plant modeler and see what this feature can do. So if I proceed to make another branch over here under the create branch option, we have the additional function of a tangential branch, right? Let me this time select an even smaller nominal size for the branch. We'll click on OK over here and you will see that this particular branch will always run on the tangential surface to the existing pipe. Let me just select one angle from here, and next I have to give the length of this branch. I can give that distance using the distance command. Correct? So this is how the tangential branch will appear. You can see we had selected an angle and we have given the distance, and using the tangential branch function, this branch has formed on the tangent of the selected pipe. Having looked at the features that were aimed towards the pipe branching, let us move ahead and have a look at the revolutionary new feature of the new isometric tool. Now, in order to use the new isometric tool, firstly you will have to enable the new isometric tool from the options menu. The new isometric tool brings you a host lot of new features aimed at ease of user experience. You can select multiple isometric types, each of which can be configured individually to perform a separate independent set of functions. You can configure the name generation rule, you can configure the split pipeline isometric numbering format. So let us go to the PM area, let us see how you can enable the new isometric tool, and let us see how you can configure certain things. So in the PM area, if we see, if you have not enabled the new isometric tool, you won't have a dedicated tab for the isometrics. You just have it under the documents tab, piping isometrics over here. So let us see how you can enable that tool and get the dedicated tab for that. We'll go into options. Here under the documents, we have the isometric drawings. Here we'll click on the new integrated tool. We'll click on OK, and this will give us the new piping isometric interface. Now, before going into the depths of generating the isometric drawing, let us actually have an overview of the isometric tool first, and let us see what the tool is capable of. Correct? Post enabling the new isometric tool, the first option that you have is of the active isometric types. In this drop down here, you will see that there is piping isometric group 1, 2 and 3. Now moments before, if you remember, I had mentioned that you can configure each piping isometric to perform a different set of functions, and you can simultaneously generate the isometrics from all of them. So this is where it comes out of. You can see here we have three groups, and not just these three groups, you can add n number of groups to this drop down. As of now, you can see just three groups, but you can keep on adding groups as and how you require. Now, in order to assign some specific features to these three groups, here if we go into the piping and we go into the isometrics checks, here also you will find those three groups. Correct? As of now, if I just keep the piping isometric group 1, here you can see I have certain set of isometric checks. I can enable the collision for the isometric group 1. I can select the minimum clearance, I can select the accuracy limits, and there are various options in which I can set different permutations and combinations, and I can extract the isometric. Correct? I can click on OK for this. I'll click on yes. Then here, if I again go into the options, we again go into the piping isometrics checks. Now I can select the isometric group 2, and I can select a host of different isometric checks that I want the isometric group 2 to perform separately. Correct? So like this you can assign different set of isometric checks to different isometric groups which can be performed independently. So coming back to our isometric drawings, here you can select the ICGD as always from here. Then we have some new features under the automatic isometric annotations. If we click upon define, and if we go into the dimensions part and we click upon set styles, here this Cadmatic default has been added recently. If we click upon edit, you can see there are some new functionalities that you can directly select from here. You can go into the detailed dimensions, you can check mark this if you want to enable value middle points. Then if you want detailed dimensions for the threaded parts, you can check mark this. If you want detailed dimensions for the reducers or the gaskets, you can check mark these functions accordingly. Right, then you can also configure with the basic settings, wherein you can change the distance dimension to parts. Right, you can directly change this value from here. So this is something that has been added recently. Similar to that, we have some settings focused towards the axis symbols. You can see we have the offset of the sheet. You have the U and V origin. You can see the label and scale settings from here, X, Y, and Z origin. Then this is the general scale. After that, we have some settings towards the triangles. Triangles of the isometrics can be controlled from here. We again have the U and V settings and the triangle and dimensions. Then we can check mark if we want to use angles and marks. Then we can check mark if any of them, if we want to add slope mark, if you want to add triangles for the reference, if you want to insert actuator for angles of valve, or if you want to insert angle of primary support. Then for the coordinates part, we have some dedicated functions as well. You can select the line coordinates, the coordinate labels. So whatever you want, you can select from this drop down. The distance between the coordinate labels and reference points can also be edited from here. Then lastly, we have some settings towards the part numbers. You can configure the cut number, the part number, and you can have a look at the common for part and cut. So all these settings can be performed from this option of automatic isometric annotations. Then if we click on the define option for the select model data to drawings option, here you can see we have the reference part length. We have some additional model data for the documents wherein you can define the isometric part attributes. You can continue, you can define the continuing part attribute as well as you can define the continuing isometric attributes. So whatever settings you click, this isometric pop-up will open in front of you, and you know the process further to this wherein you can just add the attributes. Correct. So these were some overview functionalities of the new isometric tool. Now let us look at the isometric tab that we have. This is the new dedicated isometric tab that comes along with the new isometric tool. On our left, we have the production tree, and on our right, we have the isometric groups. Over here, we have the assign function. We can directly assign any system to any of the pipelines. Then this manage option contains a list of all the piping isometrics that you have generated. Then this isometric plane drop down has two options. We can make this production tree visible or invisible, and we can similarly we can make the isometric groups visible or invisible. Then over here under the active group objects, we again have the same three piping isometric groups that we had discussed previously, and we had also discussed how we can configure these. Under the production tree, you can see this contains all the various systems that we have currently, and whatever system we select, for example, if I'm clicking on A water, the pipelines that fall under that particular system will be highlighted. You can see if I click on the plus, A water 1 is currently routed and is being highlighted as well, right? If I just show you over here, A water 01, it will be highlighted. Similar to that here, let us see, we have the water system, some pipelines from the water system. You can see air pressure is being highlighted, water is being highlighted. So like this, whatever pipeline you select from the production tree, the same will be highlighted in the model area. Now coming back to our pipeline A water 1. Okay, this is our pipeline. Now since I've selected the piping isometric group 1 over here, and under the piping isometrics checks, we had enabled the collision detector check for piping isometric group type 1. Now in order to see how that function performs, I will go into piping and I'll intentionally collide this bulkhead over there, right? I will just collide this. I'll click on enter. Now this is a collision. Now let us see. We'll go back to the piping isometrics. I can right click over here. I can get a line preview. You can see like this, we can just simply get a line preview, or I can directly jump into the properties plane from here. Apart from all these, I will just go into create isometric groups, and once I do this, it should run a collision check since we have selected that. And you can see a collision detector check will run, and here all check results will be failed. Now if I click on this, I go into the production check results. Here it will show me collision. You can see like this, it will show the collision. Here you can see there are a list of icons for your reference. is in continuity check also, it is telling me that the ends are not connected, and in collisions also it is showing me that there is one collision. The next thing that we can do over here is we can select this, we can go into show details. Here instead of the possibilities, instead of continuity, we'll select the collision, we'll click on OK, and here this is the collision detector interface that will open in front of us. You can see like this. We can just click on OK for now, and we'll click on close. We'll cancel this as well. I will just cut this pipeline to remove the collision. Let me just cut it from this point, and we'll delete this colliding part. We'll again go into the piping isometrics. We'll right click over here, and we'll go to create isometrics groups. This time again the collision check will run. This is coming failed for the continuity this time. Let us see. If we just click this, we'll go into the production check results. Collision is okay, ends are not connected. So like this you can see we can just establish a set of tests that need to be performed before generating of the piping isometrics, and these tests can be configured in the isometrics check section. Correct. So let us just click on OK for now, and simply like that the piping isometrics for AA water 1 will come under the isometrics groups. If we right click over here, here you have a similar set of options like you used to have in the older version of the piping isometrics, wherein you can have a group preview. Okay, you can directly have a preview from here. Then you can have the similar options like locate in model, locate in production tree. You can check it from here. Then we have the similar options of rename isometric groups, properties, field welds, extra lens. So all these options you are already familiar with. We had the same options in the older version as well. Just for the newer version, you can directly do it from here. Correct. Lastly, we can also just have a preview of the isometric drawing. Directly it will open in this particular window. You can see like this the isometric will appear, that it is showing us we have the main pipeline over here, we have the two branches along with it, and these are the various tables that we have. Lastly, what I will do, I'll just right click and I will go into create isometric drawings, and this will create the isometric drawing for us for pipeline number AA water 1. You can see this isometric drawing has been now created. Now what we can do, we can go into manage, and we can directly have this isometric tool over here. Unlike the previous version wherein you have to go into the piping isometric tool from the Cadmatic desktop, here under the new piping isometric tab you directly have an option of manage, wherein you can see the piping isometrics that you have generated. We'll click on edit, and this will open in this particular interface wherein we have the new option of isometric view editor. Okay, if I just click over here isometric group editor, this will open in the editing menu for the isometric groups. Now before exploring the various options that are available over here under the isometric group editor, let us get back to our slides and let us see what the slides have to say about this. Moving ahead from the overall overview of the new isometric tool, we proceed to the style based and the rule based functionalities of the isometric tool. The new isometric tool provides us great ways to edit the isometric drawing that we have just generated. We can add or edit the existing dimensions as well as the coordinates. It also enables us to add or remove or even auto add the part numbers and the cut numbers, the weld numbers, right? And we can also insert the additional labels or break attributes if we want. And if due to some reason we have lost the annotations, we also have the option to auto recreate all the annotations, as well as we can change the overall orientation as well. So now let us get back to our isometric view editor and see how these individual functions can be employed. So under the home tab, we have a set of all the functions that we will require to perform the editing functions on any of the isometrics that we have generated. Now, eventually, when you will start using this interface more and more, you will be able to get familiar with these options and you will be able to understand their usability. But as of now, I'll just quickly give you a gist of what are the capabilities of the each individual functions. Firstly, we have the dimensions option. Here under the dimension setting, we can either add, modify or delete any of the dimensions. For example, if I click upon add, you see I can add the dimension to any point from this point to this point. Maybe I'll just try to add the dimension like this, and I can place it anywhere. Okay, let me just place it over here. Apart from that, if I go into the modify option, I'll select the same dimension. Here I can lock it to any of the axes. For example, if I want to lock the movement towards the x-axis, it will only move over here. Towards the y-axis, it can move in this direction. And similarly, you can try for the z-axis also if your pipe's orientation is according to the axis, right? So like this, we can change the movements. Similar to that, we can delete if we can delete a selected dimension. For example, I'll just go ahead and I'll delete this one, or we can delete all the dimensions. Then apart from that, we have the angular direction for the branch. We have one of our branches over here. I will just select this branch, and like this the angular dimension will come, which is 90 degree. Is the angular dimension okay? We'll click on yes, and this will be the angular dimension for the elbow. Correct. So this is how the dimension feature will work. Then for the coordinates part, we can use the coordinates over here. Again, we have the similar set of options. We have add, move, delete, or delete all. Clicking on the add, let us give the coordinates to this point. We'll select this point, and like this the coordinates shall appear. Okay, if we want to move this, we can again click on move. We'll select this part. We can move it anywhere, and we can delete this, or we can delete all of them. Apart from that, with the help of the line coordinates, we can get the coordinates from the exact axes. For example, as of now, I am selecting the line coordinates directions to be x and y. I'll click on OK, and I'll select this point. The nearest 4 point from here is F79 for this, which is at the set distance, and you can see the center line, which is the CL. It is at the set distance to this point. Like this, we can give the coordinates to it. Next, under the edit labels, we have the part numbers. Now here it is telling me that all parts have a part number. I can still click on OK. Now I can either move, delete, offset or delete all the part numbers, or I can either add the numbering manually, add only the missing numbering, or do the entire default numbering once again. So if I simply click upon move, and let us say, for example, if I want to move this, I can simply click on this. I can move to any point. Then I can either click on delete. I can delete this one. Now once you delete any one of the part numbers from within the run, all the part numbers preceding to that part number will be renumerated accordingly. After deleting that, we have the option to either add the number myself. I can add the current part number as 6, or I can give any other value also if I want. I can add it here manually, or I can simply click on add missing, and you can see it will be added automatically. Correct. So this is how you can add the part numbers. Similar to the part numbers, we have the cut numbers. Here also it is telling me that all the parts have a cut number. We can click on OK, and we have the similar options. We can either move, delete, offset, or delete all the part numbers. Then once we perform any one of these functions of delete, we will be highlighted with the renumbering. We can either add it manually, or we can directly add the missing, or we can continue with the default numbering. Correct. Similar to that, we have the weld joints as well. We can either add a new weld joint, we can delete any existing weld joint, we can modify, regenerate, update, or we can raise a query on the weld joint. Next to that, we have the labels. These are the various labels that you can insert. You can insert a free text anywhere you want. You can insert a valve operator, valve position. You can even insert a pipeline number. Now here this pipeline has already the name A water 01, but still, just to show you, I can click on this pipeline and I can add it like this. So simply you can add different kinds of labels from there. As of now, let me just delete this one because it already exists. Then we have the normal functions of rescale, move, delete, edit any label if you want, or you can rotate any of the symbols that you want. If I just go to rotate symbol, I'll click on this symbol. Here you can see I can choose the direction in which I want the rotation. I can select the positive and negative axis, and I can change the rotation angle as well. As of now, let me just click on cancel. Now, apart from rotating a specific symbol, we can also rotate the entire view direction. Here, if we click upon the rotate view direction, we have a slider over here. If we want to rotate it around the view, if we want to rotate it at an angle from the xy plane or at an angle from the x plane. We can do all these things from here. If I just simply slide the slider to rotate this view, you can see the view will be rotated. I can also give a fixed angle over here, like say example I'm giving 45, but as of now let me just keep it on default, that is 0 0. Apart from that, we have the properties option. If you want the properties of any parts, if you want to show that part in the catalog, you can do it from here. For example, if I click upon part properties, I click upon this, you can see like this a small description will come, wherein you have the dimensions, you have the standards, you have the nominal size, you have the specifications. So like this, so some properties you can also see from here. Apart from that, if somehow you have lost all the annotations, you can just simply click here on recreate all annotations and everything will be set back to the default values as it was. Now coming back to our presentation, we proceed towards the last slide for our today's agenda. This is another new interesting feature that you will find under the admin tab that allows you to directly check the material file, the header file and the G file from the admin interface against the older method wherein you had to go to the application folder, then navigate to the workspace in order to access the material and the header file. Now in this latest version, under the show files tab, under the admin tab, you directly have an option to have a look at the M file, H file and the G file. So let us go to the isometric interface and see how this function works. So as mentioned, we will go to the admin tools. Here under the show files drop down, we have an option for visualizing the M file, H file and the G file. Right, if I directly click upon the M file, you can see this is the materials file that will open in front of me, and this is the browsing directory that it is being fetched from. Similar to that, under the same drop down, just with a single click, I can access the H file as well. Again, we have the directory on top. Here you can see a water 011 pipeline is the system that we are currently working on. After that, I can do the same step for the G file. This is the G file for the given water system. Apart from that, we have the annotation file as well. This is the annotation file. With a single click, you can also access the DDL file. This is the DDL file. And on top of each pop-up that opens, you can see the browsing directory is also mentioned. This is the revision table file. We have the weld joint file. This is the weld and joint file. And we have the profile area file as well. Apart from that, we have the attributes drop down. Still under the admin tools, you can set or delete the point attributes, you can set or delete the part attributes, and you can set or delete the extra material attributes. With this drop down, you can regenerate spool labels, you can regenerate wall labels, you can update any extra material lens, or you can add special valve symbol. Again, this is the option to add any 2D symbol. This is the query option where you can search anything by part by index, branch points, main part, bent pipe, all these things you can directly raise a query and you can search in the isometric interface. Then this is the highlighting attributes. Here if I go into part number, simply whatever part number I will click, you can see it will be highlighted. This is usually used for a very, when your isometric has a lot of components in it, so you can highlight whatever you're interested in. Then under the tools tab, we also have some other tools wherein we can list the dimensions, draw line segments, insert point index. So these are some other tools that we have. You can reverse the orientation of any part within the run if you want. And lastly, we have the script and the command prompt option under the run tab. And with this, we can conclude the technical part of today's webinar. Hope the session was informative for you all and you were able to bundle up some new perks. Thank you so much for your time and attention. You have been a great audience.